I buried my son yesterday, and today, his wife buried me. The house still smelled like lilies and sorrow. The flowers from the funeral, already starting to wilt. I sat there in the silence, clutching the last cup of tea I'd made for Daniel. It had gone cold, like everything else in my life. For a moment, I thought I heard his laugh echo from the hallway. Then I remembered, he wasn't coming back. That's when she walked in. Lena, my daughter-in-law. Her heels clicked across the marble floor like gunshots in the quiet. Her eyes, dry. Her voice, sharp enough to cut through grief itself. "You need to leave," she said. I looked up, confused. Leave? Where would I even go? She crossed her arms, no hint of empathy. "This is my house now. Daniel wouldn't have wanted you to stay." I wanted to believe I'd misheard her. My son, my Daniel, had built this home with love. He'd promised I'd never be alone. I whispered, "Sweetheart, this was his home, ours." But she snapped before I could finish. "Get out, old woman!" Her words slammed into me harder than any storm. I just sat there, staring at the picture frame beside me. Daniel's smile frozen in time. I stood slowly, the floor creaking beneath my trembling steps. I didn't argue. I didn't fight back. I just gathered what little I had left. His photo, my shawl, and the small wooden rosary he gave me on my birthday. As I walked toward the door, Lena muttered something under her breath. I didn't catch it. Maybe I didn't want to. Outside, the air was cold and heavy with rain. The driveway still had tire marks from the funeral procession. I looked back once. Through the window, she was already on the phone. Laughing with someone, I took a deep breath, clutching Daniel's photo to my chest. "It's okay, my boy," I whispered. "Your mother's still here." Somehow, the world around me blurred. And the only sound left was the rain tapping against the glass. And the echo of the words that had shattered me. I buried my son yesterday, and today, his wife buried me. What would you have done if someone threw you out the day after your child's funeral? If you've ever felt that kind of heartbreak, tell me in the comments. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, because some stories deserve to be heard. Before all this, before the silence and the rain and the word, widow, attached to my name, there was laughter in this house. Daniel's laughter. It filled every corner, every morning, every quiet evening when he'd come home from work, loosen his tie, and hug me so tightly I could still smell the cologne his father used to wear. He was my only child. After his father passed, I thought my world would crumble. But Daniel, he built it back piece by piece. He made sure I ate when I didn't want to. He made sure I smiled when I thought I never could again. I used to tell him, "You're too good for this world, Daniel." And he'd laugh. "Then it's a good thing you're still in it, Mom. You'll keep me grounded." Then came Lena. She was beautiful, graceful in that effortless way that made people notice when she entered a room. I'll admit, I liked her at first. She was kind to me. The first time Daniel brought her home, she helped me set the table, even complimented my stew. "You must have taught Daniel everything," she said sweetly. "Oh, no?" I laughed. "He's just like his father, good with people, terrible with spices." We all laughed that night. For a while, she seemed like the daughter I never had. But slowly I began to notice things, small things. The way she'd glance at Daniel when he called me, Mama. Or how she'd tense up whenever I told stories about his childhood. As if those memories belonged to her now, not me. Once I baked his favorite pie, apple and cinnamon, just the way he liked it. When he came home, he hugged me and said, "You remembered." Lena smiled, but it was tight. Later that night, I found the pie untouched, sitting cold on the counter. She started taking over everything. The bills, the groceries, even how Daniel and I spent time together. "He's busy, Mom," she'd say with that same polite tone that felt more like a warning. "He's got a lot on his plate. Let him rest." And I did, because I didn't want to be that mother, the clingy one, the overprotective one. But mothers know. We always know. There was something in her eyes, something I couldn't name then, but I can now. Jealousy, control, calculation. Still, Daniel loved her. And that was enough for me, or so I told myself. On their wedding day, I remember watching them dance. Her white dress spinning under the lights, his smile wide and innocent. And I thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe she really does love him. But that thought didn't last long, because even then when she turned and caught me watching from the corner, she smiled. Not warmly, not kindly. Just a small, cold curve of her lips. Like she was saying, "He's mine now." She smiled sweetly back then, but behind every smile, there was calculation. Have you ever trusted someone who later showed their true face? Someone who made you doubt every warm memory you ever had with them? Tell me in the comments. And if you're still watching, don't forget to subscribe. More stories like this are coming. It was just after midnight when the phone rang. That sound, it cut through my sleep like a knife. "Mrs. Harris," a voice said. "This is County General Hospital. Your son, Daniel, he's suffered a cardiac arrest." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I clutched the receiver. Is he okay? We need you to come quickly." I threw on my coat, not even realizing it was raining. The night was dark, thick, endless. Every red light felt like punishment. I kept whispering, "Hold on, Daniel. Please, hold on." When I reached the hospital, I saw Lena standing at the end of the hallway, arms crossed, makeup flawless. Not a tear in sight. "Where is he?" I gasped. She didn't meet my eyes. "You can't go in," she said flatly. "They're working on him." I tried to push past, but she stepped in front of me. "Lena, he's my son," I cried. "And he's my husband," she snapped back. "You'll just get in the way." The words hit harder than the rain outside. I stood there, drenched, helpless, staring at the door where the man who'd been my whole world was fighting for his life. And then, a sound I'll never forget. That single, flat beep. The hallway went silent. The doctor came out, his eyes heavy, his voice low. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could." Lena turned her face away, pressing a tissue to her lips. I watched her shoulders shake, but no tears fell. None. I walked into the room even though she told me not to. Daniel lay there, still, peaceful, too peaceful. His hand was cold when I held it. I whispered, "You promised, Daniel. You promised I'd never be alone." I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Just quiet, suffocating grief. The days after blurred together. People came, said words that meant nothing. "He's in a better place. Stay strong. You're not alone." But I was alone. Lena took over everything. The arrangements, the announcements, the funeral. Everything was perfect, expensive, cold. Even the flowers looked rehearsed. She didn't let me pick his clothes. Didn't ask what music he'd have wanted. Just stood by the casket like a queen at a ceremony she'd planned. I stood in the back, holding the same photo I'd carried since the night she threw me out, the one of him smiling, carefree, alive. As the priest spoke, My mind drifted back to every little moment. The way he'd call me every morning, the way he'd hum while shaving, the way he'd hold my hand when we crossed the street, even as a grown man. And now nothing. When they closed the coffin, I stepped forward one last time. I wanted to touch his face, but my hand froze halfway. That's when I saw it. Something strange. Tucked beneath his folded hands, half hidden by the rosary, a sealed envelope, cream-colored, thick. Lena didn't notice it, or maybe she did, and didn't want to draw attention. But I saw it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. As the coffin closed, I noticed something strange. A sealed envelope tucked beneath his hands. Would you have opened it, or respected the silence of the grave? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. And if this story has reached your heart, make sure you like and subscribe. Because sometimes, what's buried with the dead doesn't stay buried for long. The day after the funeral, the house was too quiet. No condolences. No visitors. Just silence, and the faint smell of lilies that refused to die. I sat on the edge of the sofa, holding Daniel's photo, tracing his smile with my thumb. I didn't even have the strength to cry anymore. Grief had turned into something heavier, a kind of emptiness that sat in my chest like a stone. That's when I heard the front door open. Lena's voice? Cold, clipped, all business. We need to talk. I turned slowly. About what? She didn't sit down. Didn't even look me in the eye. About you, she said. Daniel wanted peace in this house. He wouldn't want you staying here, reminding me of all this pain. Pain. Hers. I looked at her speechless. You mean his home, I whispered. The one we built together. The one he left to me, she interrupted sharply. His wife. You've had your time here. Now it's mine. My heart felt like it cracked in two. Lena, please, just a few days. Until I figure something out. But she shook her head. No. You can leave tonight. I won't say it again. And then she did something I'll never forget. She pointed to the door, her voice sharp, almost venomous. Jeet oot. Oldie woman. The same words that had echoed in my mind since that morning. Only this time, they broke me completely. I stood there frozen for a moment, surrounded by memories that no longer belonged to me. The family portraits on the wall, Daniel's shoes still by the door, his jacket hanging by the stairs. It all looked so alive, and yet I was the ghost. I packed quietly. One suitcase, a few clothes, my rosary, Daniel's photo. That was it. When I reached the door, I turned back. She was standing by the window, scrolling on her phone, her reflection lit by the glow of the screen. She didn't even look up. Lena, I said softly. You'll have to live with this. She didn't answer. The night was cold. The kind that bites through your coat and into your bones. I walked down the driveway. The same one Daniel used to run up as a boy, waving his report card, shouting, Mom, look. I sat in my old car parked under the streetlight. The seats smelled of age and dust, but it was all I had left. I wrapped my shawl tighter and stared at the house through the windshield. Her house now, I whispered. I never thought my golden years would end like this. I pulled Daniel's photo close, pressed it against my chest, and let the tears fall, quiet, unseen, swallowed by the hum of the rain. That night, I didn't pray for revenge. Not even for comfort, just for a sign. Something, anything, to tell me this wasn't the end. That night, I prayed not for revenge, but for a sign. A week passed like a blur of gray days and colder nights. I slept in my car, then on a friend's couch, drifting through memories I couldn't escape. Every night, I asked Daniel for a sign, and one morning it came. The phone rang. Messes. Harris. This is Mr. Lowell, Daniel's attorney. Will be holding the will reading tomorrow at 10 a.m. You and his wife are both required to attend. My heart clenched. I hadn't been inside an office like that in years. Something in his tone told me this wasn't going to be simple. The next morning, I walked in slowly, clutching my worn handbag and the same photo of Daniel I'd carried everywhere since the funeral. Lena was already there, sitting across the table, legs crossed, manicured nails tapping against her phone screen. She looked radiant, not like a grieving widow, but like a woman waiting to collect her winnings. When she saw me, she gave a faint, mocking smile. "Oh, you came?" she said lightly. "I wasn't sure you'd bother." I just nodded and took a seat. My hands shook, but I folded them in my lap and said nothing. I'd learned silence has power. The lawyer, Mr. Lowell, adjusted his glasses and began. "This is the last will and testament of Daniel Harris." His voice echoed through the polished room, each word slicing through the air like a blade. He read the usual things first. The savings account, the car, the business shares. Lena's name came up again and again. Every time it did, I saw her chin lift slightly higher, her smile grow a little wider. I sat still, eyes on my hands, trying not to cry. It didn't surprise me. He'd loved her. I accepted that. Then Mr. Lowell paused. A subtle, deliberate pause. He looked up from the paper, his gaze shifting between the two of us. "There's one more thing," he said quietly. "Mr. Harris left a video message. He asked that it be played here today, in your presence." Lena blinked. Her smile faltered. "A video?" she asked, trying to laugh. What for? He was probably delirious. But I saw it. That flicker in her eyes. Fear, just for a moment. Mr. Lowell nodded to his assistant, who wheeled in a small screen and pressed play. I felt my palms go cold. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear. There was a soft click, and then the screen lit up. When the screen lit up with my son's face, I felt the air leave my lungs. He was sitting in his office. The same desk I used to dust when he was a teenager studying late into the night. He looked tired, pale, but calm, alive, and about to speak words that would change everything. If you were in my place, could you handle what came next? Because sometimes the dead have more to say than the living ever did. If you're still watching, make sure to like and subscribe. This story is only getting started. When the screen lit up, my breath caught in my throat. There he was, my boy, my Daniel, so pale, so thin, but still him. The way his eyes softened when he looked at the camera, it felt like he could still see me. "Mom," he began, his voice weak but steady. "If you're seeing this, I'm sorry you had to hear these words this way." I gripped the edge of the table. My hands were shaking. Even Lena stopped moving, her confidence drained, her fingers frozen midair. Daniel continued, each word heavier than the last. "I didn't want my goodbye to come through lawyers or papers. I wanted it to come from me." He took a deep breath, coughed lightly, then forced a faint smile. "You were my first friend, Mom, my anchor. When Dad died, I promised you I'd never let you feel alone again, but I broke that promise. I let someone convince me you were a burden." My eyes burned. I could barely breathe. He blinked slowly, and then his tone changed, firmer, colder. "Lena." Her name sliced through the silence like glass. Lena straightened in her chair, her lips parting just slightly. "I know you're watching this too," Daniel said, his eyes narrowing. You always liked being in control, didn't you? But not this time. I know about the lies. The forged signatures. The money you moved without telling me. The way you isolated me from my own mother. Told her not to visit when I was in the hospital. You even told the nurses I didn't want to see her. I felt my chest tighten. I remembered those nights. Calling, begging the nurse to let me talk to him, only to be told he was sleeping or too weak. Daniel's voice broke slightly. You took my phone, Lena. You deleted her messages. You said it was for my peace of mind. But the truth is, you just didn't want me to hear her voice. He leaned closer to the camera now, his eyes glistening. I forgave you once, Lena. When I found out about Mark, your business partner, I told myself maybe you just made a mistake. But I realized something before I went into that hospital for the last time. You weren't waiting for me to get better. You were waiting for me to die. Lena's face turned pale. Her eyes darted around the room, but no one spoke. Not even the lawyer. Daniel exhaled shakily. You'll have your freedom now. You always wanted that. But not my home. Not my name. Not a single dollar from what my father built. He looked off, camera briefly, maybe at his lawyer, then back. This house, and everything in it, will legally belong to my mother, Margaret Harris, along with my savings and remaining assets. She deserves peace, real peace. As for you, Lena, I hope someday you understand what love really means. Because everything you built on lies ends here. Mom, I love you. I'm sorry I didn't protect you sooner, but maybe this is my way of coming home. The video clicked off. The room fell into absolute silence. I could hear only the faint whir of the ceiling fan and the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. Lena sat motionless, her face drained of color. Then, without warning, she stood up and stumbled backward. This is a mistake. It's not real. Her voice cracked into panic. She reached for the papers, tried to snatch them. But the lawyer stepped in. Mrs. Harris, it's all legally certified. Your husband signed this himself. There's nothing you can contest. Lena's knees buckled. She sank into the chair, her sobs echoing through the room. And I just sat there. Tears streamed down my face, not out of revenge, but release. For the first time since Daniel's death, I could breathe. Justice doesn't always come from the living. Sometimes it comes from love that refuses to stay silent, even after death. What would you have done if someone betrayed your child's last promise? Tell me in the comments. And if you're still watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Because sometimes the truth waits, even beyond the grave. The video ended, but the silence it left behind said more than any scream ever could. For a long moment, no one moved. Even the air in the room felt heavier, like it was holding its breath. Lena sat frozen, mascara streaked, lips trembling, eyes darting between me and the darkened screen, as if she could undo what she'd just heard. I didn't say a word. Mr. Lowell, the lawyer, quietly gathered the documents and placed a small velvet pouch on the table. Inside, the house keys. Mrs. Harris, he said softly, these belong to you now. The metal jingled faintly when he slid them toward me. Such a small sound, yet it carried years of love, loss, and everything in between. Lena finally broke the silence. Her voice cracked. Please? Margaret, you have to understand, she stammered. I didn't mean for things to go this way. Daniel. He misunderstood things. I loved him. I turned to her slowly. Her words spilled out like broken glass, sharp, desperate, cutting themselves as they fell. I just wanted a life with him, she whispered, her face wet with tears. You always took his attention. You never gave us space. She stopped herself when she saw my expression. Not anger, not pity, just stillness. I stood up. My chair made a soft scrape against the floor, the sound echoing through the polished room. I walked toward her, each step measured, quiet, deliberate. She looked up at me, eyes red, hands shaking, waiting for me to yell, to curse, to crumble. But I didn't. I just stood there. I looked her straight in the eyes and said softly, almost a whisper, "You threw me out of my own house." She blinked, as if hearing those words out loud made her finally understand what she'd done. I didn't need to raise my voice. The truth had already done the shouting for me. I reached out, picked up the keys from the table, and turned to the lawyer. He gave a small nod, respectful, almost relieved, and then, without another word, I walked toward the door. Behind me, I could still hear Lena's sobs, muffled, desperate, echoing off the walls like the ghosts of her own choices. When I stepped outside, the sunlight hit my face. Warm, blinding, real. For a moment I just stood there, breathing. The same sky that had looked so gray the day of the funeral now looked lighter. I ran my thumb over the cold metal of the house keys and felt tears roll down my cheeks. But this time, they weren't from pain. They were from peace. I got into my car, the same one I'd slept in just a week ago, and smiled faintly at the irony. Now, it was time to drive home. She thought she'd taken everything from me, but she forgot who raised the man she married. And somewhere, deep inside, I knew Daniel was watching. Not just proud, but free. Would you have forgiven her or walked away just like I did? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay for the next chapter. Because sometimes the calm after the storm is just the beginning of peace. The next morning, I stood outside the house, my house, for the first time in what felt like forever. The garden gate creaked, the same way it used to when Daniel came home late after football practice. The roses I planted with him years ago had overgrown, wild but alive. I hesitated before stepping inside. The key turned in the lock with a soft click, and as the door opened, a wave of memories poured out. Laughter, Sunday breakfasts, the sound of Daniel's footsteps racing down the hallway. Every corner whispered his name. I walked through the living room, fingers brushing over the dusty picture frames. There we were, me, Daniel, and his father. 3 smiles frozen in time. The same couch where we used to watch movies was still there, the same scent of his cologne still faint in the air. I sat down slowly, closing my eyes. For the first time since the funeral, the silence didn't hurt. It felt peaceful. I made my way to Daniel's old study, the one Lena had turned into her office. His things were gone, neatly boxed away. But something felt unfinished, like a story waiting for its last page. I opened one of the drawers. Inside, beneath a stack of papers, was a small brown envelope with my name written on it. Mom. My breath caught. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a folded note, written in Daniel's handwriting. Strong, steady, familiar. Mom, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you everything in person. I know you've always worried about me, about being alone after I'm gone. But please know, this house will always be yours. It's not just walls and a roof. It's our memories, our laughter. You made it a home. So live here. Smile again. Plant new flowers. I love you, Mom. Be happy. Daniel. I pressed the note to my heart and finally let the tears come. Not from pain this time, but from something softer. Gratitude. Love. Release. I whispered into the quiet room, "Oh, Daniel, you always did keep your promises." I walked to the window, sunlight spilling over the floor like a gentle blessing. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive again, like he'd never really left. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. I stepped outside into the garden, the keys still warm in my palm. A small bird landed on the fence, chirping once before flying off into the blue sky. I smiled. Maybe that was his sign. Do you believe justice always finds its way back, even after death? Because sometimes it doesn't come with revenge or anger. It comes quietly, wrapped in love. And a son's final gift. It's been a few weeks now. The days have grown quieter, kinder. Lena moved away. The lawyer said she sold her car, packed up, and left town without saying goodbye. I didn't ask where she went. Some stories don't need a second chapter. The house feels different now, lighter, as if Daniel's spirit has finally found peace here. Each morning, I step out into the garden with my cup of tea, watching the sunlight spill over the roses. They've started to bloom again, wild, untamed, but beautiful. I spend my days tending to them, pruning, watering, talking to them like I used to talk to Daniel. Maybe he still listens, somewhere between the wind and the warmth. Sometimes, neighbors stop by to say they're glad to see me smiling again. I just nod. Because peace doesn't always come loud. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, like a long, forgotten melody finding its way home. You know, I used to think losing my son was the end of everything. But I was wrong. Sometimes, life takes away what we love to show us what we deserve. It's strange. The pain never fully leaves, but it changes shape. What used to burn now glows. What used to break now builds. I walk through this house and realize it's not just bricks and walls. It's a reminder that love, when it's true, never really dies. It just waits for us to notice it again. My son left me more than a house. He left me my dignity back. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to stay for more. Some truths are worth hearing.